For a decades, Apple philosophy was non-negotiable. Control the hardware, control the software, control the experience. If you want Apple quality, you build it yourself. But on January 12, 2026, the era officially ended. In the move that stunned the tech world, Apple signed a massive multi-year agreement with Google to make Gemini the brain behind the next generation of a Siri. Despite having 130 billion in the cash, Apple admitted it could not build its own AI model that is competitive enough to Gemini and OpenAI and other AI platforms. This is not just a software update. It is geopolitics earthquake. While Google takes the throne in the West, Apple has been forced to partner with Alibaba in China to survive rise in sovereign AI. And perhaps most shocking of all, the company that started AI revolution, OpenAI, has been kicked out from the Apple. Today, we are breaking down the Apple surrender and private cloud architecture they claim to protect your data, and Nvidia has replaced Apple as the most important company in the world. So let's look on the deal. For a year, Apple tested everyone. Early reports suggested that OpenAI are the front runners. So why did Google win the game? According to sources, OpenAI lost for two critical reasons. First, reliability. Their servers are not reliable. Every time outages are there. When you push the button of 2 billion active device, when Apple have a 2 billion active user of their phone and Siri users, they don't want their service should go down for a fraction of a second. And OpenAI have a history for a service disconnection because of their server down. So OpenAI has been kicked out from the Apple Growth. Second, it was strategic. OpenAI is building the hardware that is direct competitor of Apple's hardware. OpenAI is actively building the hardware that can give the competition to Apple hardware. Apple never wants some competitor to survive who is giving competition for their hardware production. Meanwhile, Google was the safe bet. They are already Power AI and millions of Samsung devices are using Google AI, but technical glitch and context window Gemini 1.5 Pro offer massive 1 million tokens. For OpenAI, analysts are calling this is the critical blow for their valuation because Apple kicked them away. They has been relegated to legacy utility and optimal toggle rather than core brain of iPhone. Apple is the privacy company and Google is the data company. How can this possibly work together? Apple answered this one. We developed the private cloud compute PCC. They published massive security paper on this and details are fascinating. Here is the promise of Apple. When you ask Siri complex question, your data hits Apple PCC server first. These servers are stateless computation. This means your data is only to answer the request, not to store in the device. Effectively, according to Apple, this data will be deleted in the moment answer generated. Apple claimed that not even their own site, not even their engineers can see the data and not the Google can access the data. That even implementing something called target diffusion, which hide your IP address and ensure that any attacker can't target your specific user data even servers are compromised. So, while Google provides the reasoning layers, they are supposedly never see who is asking the question and learn from specific data. So, what is the use of China? What is the role of China in this sovereign AI? If the Google deal in the story in the West, then China deal the story in the East. You cannot use Google Gemini in China because of regulation. Apple can't just ship the US model there China require model to be trained on local data and follow their instructions. So, who is the powering of the iPhone in the China? There is another infrastructure in the China that is supported by Alibaba, and Apple is integrated in that technology. It means if you are using Apple in the US, you have to use Gemini or Google, and if you are using your Apple phone in the China, then you need to use a infrastructure supported by Alibaba company. So this is happening because Chinese AI is no longer playing catch up. A startup called DeepSeek recently developed the model. It's a very cheap model. Comparison between DeepSeek and US model, it's a 6 million to 100 million is spent on US lab. It means if DeepSeek for same result, it's spending 6 million. In other model like ChatGPT and Gemini, they are using $100 million for that. So this is the rise of the sovereign AI. Means Apple has to maintain two separate brain for Siri, one for the Western bloc and one for Eastern bloc, one for the US and another for China. So there is a hardware war. AI is supported by hardware. So there is a hardware war as well. So and finally we have to talk about hardware force Apple sent. For a decade, Apple was the VIP customer for TSMC, the world's most important chips manufacturer. If Apple wanted 3 nanometer chips, they got them first, but the relationship is now twisted. Reports from Times of India and Wall Street Journal reveal that Nvidia has overtaken Apple as TSMC most priority customer. TSMC CEO reportedly gave Apple's blunt reality check, stating that AI customers get priority because they are very rich, they are paying more, and Nvidia and AI companies are willing to pay upfront and book capacity year in advance. This is humiliating for Apple and point where they now exploring partnership with Intel, and long back they kick off Intel from their company, and initially Apple was the chip manufacturer, chip supplier for the Apple. Initially Intel was the chip supplier for Apple, but they kick out that Intel long back. The fact is Apple is talking to Intel company. They publicly fired a year ago. What does the January 12th deal means for us as Indians or public? It's a signal that generative AI, chatbots and agentic AI. New Siri is not about talking or acting. It's booking flight, editing photo and navigating apps. But it's also proof that walled garden is dead. Apple can no longer build the future alone. They are renting intelligence from Google in the West and Alibaba in the East in China, while fighting Nvidia for the chips to run it all. So what do you think? Do you trust Google with your private data, even Apple's private cloud protection? And does split with China concern you? Let me know. Comment below.